and welcome to the editorial analysis of the Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 29th of March. So coming to the first article, the shape of an urban employment guarantee. Now the context here is with regards to the unemployment in India, and this editorial is basically calling for an employment guarantee program specific to the urban areas. For rural areas, as you all know, there is already an employment guarantee program, which is the Mahendra program. Now, a similar program is what is being advocated for small towns and medium towns. So that is what is the gist of this particular editorial. Now coming to the issues which have been discussed, the first issue is that of a crisis of employment. Now the editorial is discussing that definitely there is a crisis of employment that is at present going on in India. This is because the unemployment in India is at a 45-year high, which is at present 6.1% in the year 2017 and 18. And also the problem is what is more severe in urban areas is what is being highlighted here. Next, what has been discussed is an issue which is related to the Indian towns. Now, the editorial is discussing that especially the small and the medium towns in India are what are ignored. The major programs of the government, for instance, the Smart City Mission or the Amrut Mission, all of these are covering only a fraction of these towns, which are the small and the medium towns, and as a result of which development in these towns is what is not taking place. Also, the urban local bodies in these towns are what are struggling to provide even the basic facilities in these towns. The next part of the editorial largely combines these two problems into a solution for each other. This is about the fact that if a large part of the urban youth is what is unemployed, and also there is a need for a large amount of urban services, then why not combine these two problems and employ the youth in providing these services? And that is what has been envisaged. That is what is the crux of this particular editorial. Next, this editorial is calling for an urban employment program. Now, as I had discussed, this urban employment program is going to be is largely envisaged as a group of people who are working with a range of skills. Also, different types of education levels are what are going to be introduced in the workforce here. So, different types of jobs are what are going to be created in this kind of a program. Also, what is being advocated here is the idea of something called green jobs. Now, these green jobs are jobs which are related to creating, maintenance, sustenance of green spaces in urban areas. And the editorial is saying that we could have a program and these kind of jobs are what are created for the youth. And this is one de novo idea that we can also replicate in our answers. Another thing that has been analyzed is the impact that this kind of a program is going to have in the economy. Now, the editorial is discussing that first and foremost, it is going to be a source of employment. So definitely it is going to boost the income. This boost in income is what is going to result in a boost in demand, and this is what is going to spur entrepreneurship and also increase the skills of the youth in India, and thus this is going to be a win-win situation for India's economy. Now this editorial is largely an important one because this gives us a new idea about an urban employment guarantee program. Also, this concept of green jobs and this idea of apprenticeship and skill upgradation of the youth by employing them for urban services is something that is a new idea, and we could have some scope of replicating this idea in our answers. So that is going to be the relevance of this particular article. Coming to the next article, dangerous precedent. Now the context here is that United States of America has recently recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and this is what has resulted in several issues. The first issue here is with regards to Golan Heights itself. Now here you should know some historical aspect vis-a-vis the Golan Heights. Now, Golan Heights is a plateau region basically between Syria and Israel, and this was something that Israel had captured from Syria in the year 1967 after the 1967 war. Also at this point of time, the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt was what was captured by Israel, but this is something that Israel later returned back to Egypt. Also, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip is also something that was occupied during this particular war, and this continues to be there with Israel at present. Also, what is important here is the issue of Jerusalem. We all know that the biggest issue between Israel and Palestine is the issue of Jerusalem, which both Palestine as well as Israel lay claim to. This is some part of Jerusalem was also something that was occupied by Israel in the year 1948 and later also in the year 1967 after the 1967 war. But what has recently also happened is that US has also granted recognition to Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, despite the fact that till date global recognition to to Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is something that has not been given. Not only this, US has shifted its embassy from Tel Aviv in Israel to Jerusalem in Israel now. So this is something that was already a cause of concern, and on top of it now a recognition is what has also been given to the Golan Heights. Now, this is something that is important for us because the international norms and consensus in this particular issue have been undermined. These norms and consensus is what has been flouted. And this is something that is going to set a wrong precedence here. You should know that the UN in the past had refused to give recognition to or sovereignty, acknowledge the sovereignty of Israel over Golan Heights, or for that matter over Jerusalem. So if US is going to singularly do this, then this undermines the UN itself. And this is something that could lead to further actions or further steps like these by other countries also. Another thing that you should know is that in the international order, even if a country is not that powerful economically or for that matter militarily, then also that country is what is to be considered equal. But this is clearly what is not happening in the current scenario. US, because of its economic might and military might, is showing its hegemony in the world, and it is showing its might, and as a result of which countries which are smaller, for instance Syria, which at this point of time cannot fight back for Golan Heights, are somehow being undermined, and this is something that could create a sense of insecurity among smaller countries, and that is what has been highlighted here. Next is the issue of the inhabitants of the territory. Now, definitely it is the primary responsibility that the inhabitants of that particular territory be asked to give a referendum. Their decisions and their opinions are what should be taken into consideration. Here, this has clearly been overlooked. The Druze population which is residing in the Golan Heights have till date not considered Israel as their sovereign, and rather they had their allegiance to, or they have their faithfulness towards Syria only. So their opinion is what has been undermined, and this could be a breeding soil for conflict in the future. So that is something that is important, and that is what has been analyzed. Next is the issue of future peace settlement. Now, whenever these kind of settlements, future peace settlements are what are to be taking place, these kind of issues where US is recognizing the sovereign rights of Israel is what is going to lead to complications in the future, and this is what is going to make the peace process in the future much more difficult to achieve, is what has been highlighted, not only in the case of these Golan Heights but also more importantly in the case of Jerusalem, which has been acknowledged as Israel's capital, as I mentioned before. So it is in line with the future peace settlement that such kind of gestures is what need to be refrained from, and that is what has been highlighted here. Indeed, this is an irresponsible behavior by the US government and primarily the US President Donald Trump. So that is what is the entire analysis here. The topic is going to be important as a result of international relations, so that is the relevance. Coming to the next topic, which is power in space. Now, the context here is with regards to the DRDO's mission Shakti. This is an anti-satellite missile which has been tested successfully by India. This is known as the ASAT, anti-satellite missile. So this is something that you should know. Coming to the issues which are important, the first issue is that of the elite space club. Now, with this particular testing of this particular missile, India has entered the elite space club. Already India was believed to have this capability, but now officially only 3 other countries have tested these capabilities, that is US, China, Russia, and now it is India. Next, what is important is the idea of credible deterrence. Now, this testing of this particular missile, which is the anti-satellite test missile, this is going to ensure credible deterrence against attacks on India's growing number of space assets. So that is the interest in which this missile is what has been tested. Third is the issue of space debris. Now, it was envisaged that whenever such kind of tests are what are done in the space, the problem of debris that is generated in the space is something that is a major issue, and this is something that is an international issue because internationally the challenge of space debris is what is being faced. But for India, this test was what was done in the lower Earth orbit, and as a result of which India is saying that India has not added to the problem of space debris, as it has shown restraint and has done this test only in the lower Earth orbit. So that is something that you should know. Another thing that is very, very important is a controversy which has generated vis-a-vis this particular test. That is with regards to the timing of the test. Now, you should know that the DRDO since the year 2011 is claiming claiming that India has such capabilities of attacking any particular moving satellite in its orbit itself. But the test is what is being done at this point of time, and this is something that is being considered as an election gimmick. You should note that the ruling party BJP is being believed to follow the policy or the politics of hyper-nationalism. So this test at this point of time is something that is being believed as an election campaign by the BJP government, and this is a complaint that has been registered with the Election Commission of India. An inquiry in this regard is what is going on against the Prime Minister. So that is the controversy that is associated with the Mission Shakti. Nevertheless, this is a very, very important topic for us. This is a great achievement for India, and this is something that can be replicated or can be noted in several of our answers. Also an essay also, you can show that India has some important space capability. So that is going to be the entire relevance and utility of this particular article. And that's all for today's discussion. I thank you all for watching the video.